2 months after the Normandy invasion in western France, after getting stuck on the wrong side of a burning tank, a crazed Allied tank commander fought desperately to secure the road to Brest. When he ran out of ammunition, he headed back, only to slip into a trench right at the entrance of a German bunker filled with enemy soldiers. The surrender of 39 men to a single man armed only with a pistol defies all rational explanation. They were about to test his cunning to the absolute limit. On June 6, 1944, Allied forces finally landed in Normandy to open the Western Front, but the most fanatical and reactionary Nazis continued fighting mercilessly to stay alive. It was the day of the Great Battle, and the Allies had to win the war. On September 13, 1944, in Brest, France, members of the U.S. First Army Engineers worked to clear a path through an area fortified by Nazi forces since 1940. Captain Sidney and his men had to secure 2 routes across a minefield to allow Allied tanks to enter the outskirts of Brest. The port of Brest had been under siege by Allied forces since August 7th. After the Allies advanced to the northeast, Supreme Allied Commander General Dwight Eisenhower declared that capturing Brest was a top priority. From the Normandy beachhead, the Allies surged forward, chasing the German army, but they were rapidly running out of ammunition. The situation became critical. Their objective was to capture the port of Brest and the Nazi U-boat submarine pens. German soldiers defending the port had been ordered to hold out at any cost, to the last bullet, the last shell, and the last man. Capturing the deep-water port would allow the Allies to unload men and supplies to support their rapidly expanding operations. Brest was one of the last major German strongholds in the region, heavily protected by Nazi minefields. Clearing the mines during daylight would be deadly, so the Americans preferred to work at night. The darkness provided cover, but also made the operation far more dangerous and confusing. The engineers used metal detectors, but the ground was filled with metal debris, making identification difficult. This meant they had to rely on touch instead of sight. Approaching the fortress walls, Smith's men crawled forward in the darkness. Some spread out into neutral ground to avoid interfering with the others. Small teams of 3 worked together with only metal detectors, measuring tapes, explosives, and digging tools. One man removed the mines, another marked the safe path, and the unlucky third verified the clearance. Most mines had to be removed manually, by hand or foot, often approached from an angle to avoid triggering anti-handling devices. They uncovered 140-kilogram naval shells that the Nazis had buried as enhanced anti-tank mines, each capable of destroying a tank and killing its entire crew. The engineers did not want to disarm such mines at night, so they attached plastic explosives to detonate them from a safe distance later. They would not risk trying to dig them up in darkness. The cleared paths would allow Allied tanks to advance toward the fortress walls. As the engineers crawled back to their lines, German snipers detected one of the men despite the darkness. One was killed and another severely wounded. Allied intelligence estimated between 10 and 20,000 German defenders in Brest, expecting the city to fall within a week, but they underestimated Germany's defensive preparations. Many German soldiers had retreated into Brest as the Americans advanced, strengthening its garrison. Those stationed in Brest were among the elite paratrooper units. The Nazi propaganda often referred to them as sons of the gods of war. They were highly trained, disciplined, motivated, and deeply indoctrinated. The fortress was commanded by General Ramcke, a veteran paratrooper and a loyal Nazi who believed fiercely in Hitler. He ordered his men that no American who fought at Brest should live to fight again in Germany. On the morning of September 14th, First Army engineers uncovered 4 naval shells and set them for simultaneous detonation. But the blasts exposed a 5th unexploded naval mine still blocking the tank route. Despite enemy fire, soldier John Nelson rushed forward and placed an explosive charge on the mine, successfully detonating it. With the minefield partially cleared, the engineers began filling craters to create two paths, each 45 meters long and 7 meters wide. Major Dallas of the 116th Infantry Regiment prepared an assault on Fort Montbarey, an 18th-century French fort, providing the Germans with a tremendous defensive advantage. The stone walls were reinforced with a massive 12-meter-thick earth embankment and surrounded by a 5-meter-deep ditch. These defenses, originally designed for the 1700s, remained extremely effective even in the 20th century. The Germans added anti-tank trenches, bunkers, and machine gun nests around the fort. Each approach route to the city was covered by these defensive positions. The Allies ruled out a sea assault. Fort Montbarey was like a tough nut that had to be cracked. In addition to the engineers, Dallas called upon artillery and British and American tanks. He ordered a smokescreen to protect infantry movement before sending the 3rd Battalion of the 116th Infantry Regiment to attack German positions on the right side of the fort. Their success was critical, otherwise the entire advance would halt. For 2 days, the Americans attacked Fort Montbarey without success. The commander of the 3rd Battalion ordered the clearing of all German positions on the right flank. The infantry advanced through rough terrain, fighting with grenades, bayonets, rifles, and close-quarters combat, rarely seen at this scale in historical records. By the end of the day, the 3rd Battalion achieved its objective, capturing the western side of the fort. This allowed British Churchill Crocodile flamethrower tanks to advance. These tanks mounted a 75mm gun and towed an armored fuel trailer containing 1,600 liters of fuel. They could fire streams of flame up to 73 meters at 120 kilometers per hour. The psychological impact was enormous. Major Dallas hoped 3 crocodiles could cross the minefield and enter the fort. Each tank weighed around 40 tons, ideal for the rough terrain. But disaster struck. When the second crocodile crossed the minefield, it triggered an undetected naval mine. The explosion killed 1 man and seriously wounded 4 others. The other tanks were disabled and trapped, stuck in place and unable to advance. Engineers under Captain Sidney Smith had to clear new paths under daylight, exposed to German snipers. It was clear the Germans intended to fight for every inch. For nearly 3 weeks, the Americans could not even reach the fortress walls. Nazi propaganda minister Joseph Goebbels glorified the defenders as heroes resisting overwhelming odds. Near the fortress walls, a lone crocodile tank, commanded by British Lieutenant Tony Ward, was exposed to one of the most feared German weapons, the Panzerfaust. In the maze of trenches and ambush positions, Nazis could be hiding anywhere within 40 meters, close enough to destroy the tank with a single shot. Ward responded by firing at German defenses on the left flank. Dallas sent the 2nd Battalion to support his advance. The combined arms tactic was essential. Tanks lacked visibility and were vulnerable to ambush, while infantry could spot and eliminate Panzerfaust carriers. Ward's tank fire forced Germans from isolated bunkers, and soon the infantry captured over 70 German soldiers. But Ward had advanced too far, deep behind enemy lines with no infantry support. Out of fuel and ammunition, he tried to return, but his 40-ton tank slipped into a depression and got stuck right in front of a German bunker. Inside were 39 German soldiers. Ward climbed out with only his pistol, raised the turret hatch, and shouted at them to surrender. The Germans hesitated. 1 man with a pistol hardly seemed a threat. According to a crew member, Ward fired several warning shots. Shockingly, all 39 Germans surrendered to him. A single man with a pistol captured an entire bunker. Meanwhile, Dallas prepared a larger assault using all remaining crocodiles. Engineers attempted to create a 3rd cleared path. Under fire, they used everything available: bulldozers, explosives, shovels. Captain Smith coordinated the entire operation, guiding the bulldozer driver while lying exposed on the ground. On September 15th, Dallas launched another attack. Crocodile tanks blasted the northern wall with walls of flame, but the thick stone walls were unaffected. Even 6 crocodiles firing fuel had no effect. The flames could not penetrate the fort. Dallas then brought up 105mm artillery firing white phosphorus at close range. They fired 150 rounds, shaking the walls but not breaking them. However, the constant bombardment shattered German morale. Engineers discovered a tunnel leading into the fort from beneath a nearby building. Dallas realized this might be the key. Before sending troops in, 3 wounded Germans emerged with white flags. Through an interpreter, they revealed the defenders were mentally collapsing from the endless bombardment. Dallas offered Major von der Haight, or Flatter in the text, a chance to surrender. The answer was defiant. If this is all you have, we will hold out. For 5 days, the 29th Infantry attacked. Still, the Germans refused to surrender. Dallas decided to use massive explosives. He requested 5 tons of TNT. Only 2 tons were available. Engineers carried hundreds of kilograms of TNT through the tunnel under heavy fire. Before detonation, an American burial officer insisted on retrieving the body of Lieutenant Perot, killed earlier nearby. Under intense fire, he recovered the body to prevent it being destroyed by the blast. At 5 p.m. on September 16th, Dallas ordered the explosion. The wall collapsed. Engineers and infantry stormed through the breach under violent fire. Chaos erupted, so intense that infantry had to hit tank hulls with rifle butts to signal them to cease fire.